G'day and welcome to episode 3 of Ethan's Wildlife. Today we're going to go out to a wide range of places, including Brisbane, around the local area with a spotlight, and up to Tabletop Mountain in Toowoomba. And this little guy we've just got here is an eastern dwarf tree frog, also known as an eastern sedge frog. They're quite common around gardens, and this is about as big as they get, around 2 to 3 centimetres long. Isn't he cute? Oh, I better leave him be. See what else we can find. Our first stop on the trip is here in Sandy Camp Wetlands. It's a nice little park nestled within the city, and it's a hotspot for a variety of birds, but is also pretty good for reptiles. So let's see what we can. This little guy here is a little egret. They're a small egret species, and they are very similar to the herons with their snake-like necks and sharp beaks, which they use to spear prey underwater, including fish, amphibians, reptiles, small vertebrates. Really cool. This little guy is a very common sight around Brisbane parks and gardens. It's a willy wagtail. Little insectivorous birds. They'll eat all sorts of insects. He's been flying around attempting to snap up a few lately. They're actually quite territorial too. I've seen these guys chase down wedge-tailed eagles before. You see they went after the insect there. Amazing. This little guy is a sacred kingfisher, one of the more brightly coloured and common kingfishers actually from this area. They're actually related to kookaburras. They're a lot smaller. Kookaburras are just really a very large kingfisher, which is amazing. They really are an impressive bird. Very cool. There's another one, another sacred kingfisher. Aren't their colours just so beautiful? They're actually quite shy, so if you make too much noise around them, they'll fly away. But he's chilling at the moment, so we'll leave him be. This striking little skink is one of the more common lizards I see out and about. This is an elegant snake-eyed skink, and they're most often found around rocks, logs, and even fences in gardens. I've found them sometimes. They have this striking double white stripe down their back, and they're absolutely stunning. This guy's just out sunning himself at the moment, and like most little skinks, they're insect eaters, so he'll scurry around catching little insects. Incredible. This little guy that just dove under the water, there he is. There's two of them. They're Australasian grebes. And grebes are diving water birds. They're quite common throughout lakes, ponds and rivers sometimes in this part of Australia. They're actually found throughout most of Australia. And although they can fly, they actually prefer to dive underwater when threatened. What an interesting sight this is. This is an osprey, and it's constructed a nest on top of this power line. Now, ospreys are fish specialists. They'll fly around the ocean, rivers, lakes looking for fish. When they see a fish, they'll dive down onto it and grab it with their talons before carrying it away and eating it with their sharp hooked beak. This is a familiar bird for most people. This is a laughing kookaburra, and he's perched up on this piece of electric wire, looking down on the ground very intently for prey. They're one of the largest kingfishers in the world, and they'll hunt things like small mammals, reptiles including venomous snakes, lizards, and they're well known of course for their laughing noise. They're the only kookaburras that actually laugh, and they can be told apart by their dark eye. And that concludes our little trip around Sandy Camp. We're going out tonight to see what we can find. So we're out tonight at just driving around some local areas looking for some wildlife. So this little guy is the short-beaked echidna. 2 monotremes in 1 week. And this is our second monotreme. An egg-laying mammal. This one's non-venomous and terrestrial. The platypus is aquatic. See how he's covered in spines? He uses these spines as a defense. Echidnas have got no teeth and a very long sticky tongue which they use to lap up insects such as termites. Oh, I don't want to disturb him too much. I just had to make sure he got off the road. There we go. And our first frog. This is a striped marsh frog. They're quite common, and they're a species of ground frog. And they come out from under the leaf litter, rocks and the ground on rainy nights. You often hear these guys, they make like a sort of clicking call around ponds and lakes. They're quite common around gardens. Like all frogs, they're entirely carnivorous and they completely lack any teeth. Let's just move him off the road. This little guy that just came off the road is a broad-palmed rocket frog. Quite common, they're actually a type of tree frog, even though they spend a lot of time on the ground. They're one of the rocket frogs, and they're called that because, first of all, because of their aerodynamic shape. They also have extremely long legs and an incredible jump. These guys are some of the most impressive jumpers of all the frogs. Sorry, a little bit out of breath because I had to make sure I was able to get to him. He was jumping like mad. But he's off the road safely and he'll be alright. Alright, let's leave him be. Driving is great for finding things at night, but sometimes you gotta do a little bit of walking. Let's have a look. Here is our most famous frog, the green tree frog. They're quite common, and they're also a very large tree frog. And you can find these throughout much of the country. You can see why they call them a green tree frog, but they can actually be a variety of colours, but mostly some shade of green. You see their toe pads, these are cling pads. Much like a gecko, they're able to climb up vertical surfaces with those cling pads. Here's another striped marsh frog, taking advantage of the humid conditions. Frogs are amphibians, and they have semi-permeable skins which must be kept moist. So they actually can't survive without any moisture. There he is, he's just decided I'm a little bit scary, but that's okay. There's another green tree frog right here. And yeah, on wet nights like this, the frogs will be out everywhere. And I just love frogs. So yeah, amphibians are very sensitive to changes in the environment. They're actually a bit of a ecological indicator. If the frogs stop singing, there's a good chance that your waterways are very heavily polluted. Now this is a reptile, an Asian house gecko. These are actually an introduced species, most likely from furniture imported from Asia. They're quite common around houses, but not so much in the bush. Australia does have a variety of native gecko species, and we're not actually quite sure what the effects of this introduced species actually does. You can see they've got a spiny tail, and they're a true gecko, so they have the typical cling pads of the geckos. And these guys can actually come in a variety of colours. I've seen some with stripes and some like this typical white coloured one. Alright, so that was a successful bit of spotlighting. We saw a good number of frogs and an echidna, which is really exciting. We're going to be moving on to spotlight in a couple of different locations this episode, and we're also going to explore a couple more areas. So here we are at the final part of this episode, Tabletop Mountain, the Toowoomba region, looking for reptiles. Let's see what we can find today. As you can see, it's a rocky area, perfect for reptiles at night. Here we have a very small juvenile coastal carpet python. It's probably out looking for reptiles at this size, like small geckos and other lizards. A beautiful snake, non-venomous. And this is what I've come out here looking for. This is a barking gecko. It's one of the native geckos I was talking about. It's in the same family as the leaf-tailed geckos, and they hang out around these rocky areas. They're a nocturnal lizard. This one's actually lost his tail, but they're also known as the thick-tailed gecko. This one, you can see, has its tail. They're a terrestrial species, an insectivorous. They actually don't have any cling pads, but rather sharp claws that help them climb. It's time to get back. So that concludes this episode of Ethan's Wildlife. Hope you guys enjoyed this slightly longer episode. Just got back from Toowoomba, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.